Did we do it? Hey, I think we did it. It's my first time recording. I'm trying to make sure I do all the things right, but it seems like I'm set up okay. Can you hear me? Or can you communicate? I think I made you co-host, so you should be able to unmute.
I can speak if you can hear this.
Yes. Sounds
Look
good.
at that technology.
Amazing. We'll give people like a couple minutes to show up, but the whole idea is that we record this thing so we can like have it as ongoing content and sort of start building out this community Pondcast channel, like featuring cool stuff that community members are doing that I don't know, at least is endorsed by frog enthusiasts if it doesn't like directly have to do with frogs. Although yours does directly have to do with frogs in some capacities. I think you're one of the first ones on the map for us. So it's cool to have you on, man. Appreciate you coming here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I mean, I'll go into it more deeply when there's more people here. But yeah, we're basically part of what we do is actually we have an NFT fund that's an embryo of an NFT fund, and I'm very, very proud to say that FlyFrog is our core position at the moment.
Dude, I feel like, when I fell into the FlyFrogs, you were sort of falling into it as well, just for like the love of the frogs and the design and everything. So we can sort of like kick things off here and people will trickle in and figure out what's going on. And if not, they should be able to catch the recording. But for those of you who don't know, my name is Rizzle. That's like what people mostly know me as. I LARP as Lord of the Pond here as a, like, I don't know, hobby or what you would call it. I pretend to be a frog, as most of us do for whatever reason. And I'm happy to kick off these FlyFrog community podcasts with Lundy here from StudioTBD DAO, which does like a whole bunch of things. So the idea is to sort of do these community spotlights. If you're a frog holder and you're doing something cool, would love to get you on one of these things with myself or someone else in the community. And on the flip flop, if you are a frog holder and want to host some things or like have a cool thing you want to showcase, would love to support that through the pond and also get you in this channel that we're going to create with all the recordings so that people can catch up if they missed out on them and everything. So obviously everyone's in different time zones all over the world. So that way we got some like cool ongoing stuff that people can go back to, which I tried to start last week. I had a great interview with Molly, our lead developer, and she was amazing, and I didn't realize how to record things, and I totally botched it, but now we got the little red button, and it seems like it's all going to be on record moving forward. So, Lundy, would you like to sort of give everyone, maybe we should just start at the beginning, which is the frogs, of course. Like, how did you find FlyFrogs? Why are they so amazing? And like, what does this have to do with what you're doing right now?
Wow. Yeah, those are some really good questions. That sounds simplistic, and I'm afraid it might have some long and complicated answers. But I guess this is what this format is for. So that's all good. I actually listened in to I was sitting in an airplane that was about to take off for LA, so I missed half of it. But I heard your interview with Molly, which I thought was very cool, and I've been impressed by Josh and Molly, the people behind FlyFrog, since you found it. But I was extremely impressed with her level of knowledge of what's going on the tech side, and how much effort they put into make sure that the tadpole breeding actually is extremely gas efficient, and still make sure that the tadpole in itself is actually printed on the Ethereum blockchain, which I think from a brand perspective is kind of important, at least for now, until we know what's going to happen over the next few years. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of changes, but like Ethereum sort of gives a stamp of premium approval. So I felt like that was just like the way that they had sort of thought about that strategically and tactically, and how they executed that was extremely impressive in my book, for like, let's call it like a comedy type PFP NFT project. So that's maybe like a little bit of an insight into why I like this so much. We found FlyFrogs pretty early on in what we were doing, and I'll get back to what we were doing later. But what struck me was the sort of simplicity. I think I might be befuddling like dates and timelines here, but when the FlyFrog sort of came about, I think there were a lot of PFP projects that were minted that had some sort of scheme attached to it. Some good ones and some maybe not so good ones. I'm a pretty big fan of the Mutant Cats, for example, which sort of have like a DeFi scheme attached to their whole project, where they invest in other NFTs and stuff like that. And it was a lot of that stuff going on. And what I liked about the FlyFrogs was just that it was so simplistic. And I think that they had sort of, we wrote an article about it in our art column, which you can find on artcolumn.io, where we sort of went deep into the history of the FlyFrogs and what they were doing, and just the fact that they're all about fun, that they have a simplistic value of fun that is really hard to execute. Like, you all know, like, organized fun is never fun. It's hard to be like fun and happy and positive on demand. And I think they sort of manage, just not just through the art and how it sounds and sort of the tonality of the project, but also in every move they make. They sort of, it's just fun. It's simplistic and fun. And I think it was like it's almost like, liberating to be interacting with the FlyFrogs, like in times that we've had over the last few years, everything from like politics to like, coronavirus and financial problems and, all this fear mongering from all sides in the media. It was just nice to like, oh, wow, the internet was fun. I remember I'm old enough to remember, the dawn of the internet. And what struck me back then was that the things that really affected me was two things: either like technical advancements, like, oh, it's easier to go to the movies, but also like what was fun. There was a lot of fun stuff going on the internet back then, and that has sort of like been replaced by all BS that we see everywhere. So I think like that was the first thing that caught our attention, that like, wow, these people are really passionate, and they want to create like an oasis of fun online and in Web3, which we thought that was really cool. And then we started digging a little bit deeper. We sort of realized, we started to understand what the team was. They were sort of, slowly doxing themselves, which I thought was it just happened naturally, I think. And just the fact that the setup of the team is a couple. They live together. They have children. They created this project in the evenings after the kids were sent to bed. Josh is a toy designer, not surprisingly, which sort of, and he's obviously the one who's behind all the aesthetics and everything. And Molly is a web engineer. So it was just like, two people can come together, create a project with thousands of followers, thousands of owners, generating like $1 million plus in revenue just over a few months, with pure creation and some passion and some willpower. And we thought that was also really, really amazing, because it's a testament to what blockchain can enable. Me and my partner, Victor, who is, he's a listener here, you should follow him, Benchmark.
Let me know, Victor, if you want to come up. I can get you. I think you can raise your hand or something, or I can make an offer to be a speaker.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that if you have a fund question, I'll have to call him for help. He's an ex hedge fund trader, and I'm I come from marketing, design, and brand building, so we have started working together. Gotcha. So it's a pretty good combination. But we talk a lot about how blockchain sort of enables pure creation. Like, whatever you want to make, you can find a way to make it on blockchain and find your community to fund it, and that I think that the FlyFrogs just like is a prime example of that, where it doesn't have to be like 17 MIT geniuses that spend day and night in a dorm to create something really elaborate on DeFi, which is cool, but it can just be two people with an idea. And I think that was the thing that sort of really gripped us. Like, hey, these people are just like, they just created their own future. Together, and that was like fascinating. So we've been really inspired by the whole project, and I think that's inspired us to take some steps in Web3 ourselves.
Dude, your article came out like pretty early on in the FlyFrog's journey or whatever you would call it, and I genuinely appreciated like you recognizing like that fun and creative aspect of it, because that's honestly like exactly what we've like collectively tried to achieve, is something that like actually does some unique innovative stuff while at the same time being like reasonably simple and straightforward and like goofy, and like, you know, we can sort of laugh at ourselves and not take anything too seriously. And I feel like that doesn't always like translate to certain people, or some people are looking for like the 17 MIT geniuses. So I like, you know, from like a community builder like standpoint at heart, man, I like really appreciated that you recognized that you know, that was sort of our angle on things like super early on. So dude, tell us about your project, man. It's you know, when I glanced at it immediately, I was like, okay, cool. They're making some like NFT types of apparel and like, you know, physical items, which look incredible. But there's the word DAO at the end of it, and you sent me a document, and it like clearly goes way beyond that. So scratch the surface here. What do we got going on?
Yeah, let's start at the beginning. So I'm the chief creative of StudioTBD, and the other founder is Victor, who's in this as a listener as well. My background is marketing design and branding. I've spent a lot of time in the creative industry, and from personal standpoint, I was starting to get sort of fed up with the whole industry in itself. And I mean, the creative industry has been like almost a little safe haven for a lot of creative people. It's hard to survive in the world as a creative person, even if you're good. There are studies that show that creativity is by far the hardest way to make a living in a professional environment. So, but at the same time, the creative industry, who had sort of its heydays in the '90s and online in the early 2000s, it sort of has been going stale. So 5 years ago, I looked to, you know, become an entrepreneur instead. It was nothing that I had really longed for, but I didn't have a choice. We did some different things, and then in the beginning of last year, I got introduced to Victor. And he had been a cannabis entrepreneur for like 4 years out in California. So we have formulated a couple of really interesting and amazing cannabis products that are stability tested and ready for market. Sampling is ongoing. It's a regulated THC plus CBD cannabis products, and that was weirdly enough the starting point. And then when we were supposed to, you know, formulate a brand around this, we looked at everything that was going on in the world, like what is a brand 2021, because I don't believe in you know, formulated brand exercises. So we sort of stumbled into the crypto world, and because of Victor's background as an elite hedge fund trader, this was extremely interesting to him, and I'm very interested in business, and I'm very interested in you know, entrepreneurship. And we sort of early on realized that this is something that we cannot let this pass by. This is going to change the world, but we didn't really realize how. So long story short, towards the end of the summer, we have sort of like studied and discussed this a lot as we had been you know, making sure, you know, designing our products, stability tested, all of that stuff. And we realized that we need to be in Web3, and we have to place our company, because we have to and we want to, as what they call a crypto native company. So, and when we had decided that, and looking at everything was going on in space, FlyFrogs was out, like Bored Apes was already like mooning, and we were like, all right, so I think like NFT is going to change the world. So we started to formulate our thoughts, and we realized that we couldn't stop. So the first thing that we did was that we said that, well, the company should be called StudioTBD. Our cannabis products are called TBD. And we need to be like 50% in cannabis and 50% in Web3. So that's what we decided to do. So on the Web3 side of things, the first product that we released is already out. It's a white paper called Launchpad 2.0, and it describes, it's a scientific, holistic white paper. It doesn't really explain exactly what we do, but it explains our view on the future when it comes to venture startups. And we think that the combination between NFTs and DAOs will basically create the most efficient and lucrative startup environment that the world has ever seen. And it's already happening. It was funny, like a week after we sort of published our white paper, Link's DAO came out, which basically is exactly what we had sort of described, but they had a golf spin on it. So that's a DAO that raising money to buy a blue chip golf course in America, which is pretty cool. So that's how it all started. And simultaneously, while writing that white paper, we sort of formulated what our Web3 play was going to be. So that is called StudioTBD DAO. It's the second Web3 product. It's sort of out there. It's the embryo of it is out there. And what that is basically an NFT fund that monetizes its assets by leveraging the commercial rights that comes with the NFTs. So we basically invest in NFT projects that we think have huge potential. And we then also, so we look at them from a financial perspective, like a hedge fund trader. And then we also look at them from a creative perspective. Is this a NFT project that lends itself to create more creative products? So we have two different lenses when we pick the projects that we invest in. And then obviously the community has to be interesting. They have to be for a great cause. It has to add something to the world and all that stuff. But then our plan is to basically create a series of high-end design products and home goods products and sell them in concept stores online and brick and mortar. So we're basically the first NFT fund that actively monetizes the assets that they invest in. And obviously that will bring in funds if we do it well. And on the other side of things, if we do it well, the value of the underlying NFTs will also go up. So our purpose for StudioTBD DAO is to bring NFT culture and art to the people in the outside world. And there's no better way of doing it than just putting it on products and putting it in front of them with stuff that they actually want. So that's sort of what we're going to do.
Dude, it's a very ambitious effort. In terms of like a ground floor example, like as a frog holder, does this affect me at all? Like, is this something I can like, create products out of my, current frogs, or is this something like it's on the other end of things? Like you need to be a member of the DAO in order to make like decisions or like reap some of the benefits of it, or like how does like someone, like a regular frog like get involved in something like this?
That's a great question. First of all, we're obviously going to release our own tokens. So the first thing that we're going to do, we've written the smart contracts already. They're being tested right now. Is that we're going to offer 2,000 membership NFT tokens to anyone to invest in, and the price point is going to start at 0.06 ETH, so pretty cheap to start with. Those membership tokens will function as will give you access to the DAO. It will give you 50% off on all products in our online and our physical stores. And they also work as a mint pass for our own upcoming collectible project. So in April or May, we're going to release, a pretty, it's weird to use the word traditional in this space, but let's call it a traditional NFT PFP collectible project that these membership tokens will become mint passes for. There will be 10,000 of them in total. We're selling 2,000 of them to start, and the mint is scheduled to the beginning of February. And the reason that we're doing it that way is that we want to basically earn the trust of our community. So invest a little bit in us at the beginning, see what we do with it, and then we'll start releasing more tokens. So that's one part answer to your question. The other part answer is more exciting, I think, which is what can you do as a frog holder? Well, obviously you can buy our token to get into the DAO, but what we're also looking at, and this might take a little bit longer, is to give people the opportunity to basically use their own frogs to create products within our store. And then exactly how that's going to work, if you can just create your products for you to buy, or if you can create products that we will also carry in the store with the rev share or stuff like that, that's something that we're looking at. What's interesting with Josh and Molly is that as soon as we started reaching out to them and sort of talking a little bit what our plans were, they were very excited. And, I think it's the tightest partnership we have right now in the Web3 world, which is so. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but Josh basically reached out and said, "We love what you're doing, and just so you know, you can also use any frog that we have in the team wallet to create products as well." So the FlyFrogs are extending commercial rights not only to the frogs that we actually own, but also to the frogs that they own as well, which I thought was pretty amazing. So let's see if that sets a standard moving forward. I think this whole world of leveraging the commercial rights is something that is just starting. Nobody has really done something big in this space yet, but it's definitely coming.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's becoming more and more like expected in the standard as time goes on, and it's not really out there publicly like who's making what available. There's not a ton of like easily accessible information. Dude, you've like obviously done a lot of your homework in the space. I'm curious to know like what other projects have like inspired what you're building, and also like along the same lines, like are there other cool projects like similar to the frogs that fall into these categories that sort of check all these boxes for your team?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we are extremely inspired by the whole space. When we started talking, this is sort of what makes us unique as a founder team, that we started talking about basically issues of national economics. Like Victor has been deep into like, what is Ethereum as a financial instrument? What does it do? Is it a currency? Is it this? Is it that? So we had like months of discussion and research where we sort of looked at the infrastructure of everything. And then at the time went on, we started looking at the ventures that's built on top of the infrastructure, and not only NFTs, but also the whole DeFi world. DeFi 2.0 sort of happened last summer, and we were sort of really interested in that. So I would say that we're inspired by projects like the FlyFrogs, but we're also inspired by projects like Rari Capital, for example. So the whole space is extremely inspiring to us. In our niche, I would say that, FlyFrogs, we say it's our core position. It is, because that's the one we own most for, and this is just an embryo of everything. We have a tiny holding right now. As soon as we start selling our own tokens, a lot of those funds will go to invest in more NFTs as well as developing these products. Other projects in the space, because we're thinking about it sort of holistically. We want our design store to be the bomb. We want it to look awesome. So it's going to be a mix between things that are more, let's call it comical, and PFP sort of leaning, like the FlyFrogs, and we also have Untamed Elephants, which we think is also another project with huge potential. That story is pretty interesting. They got soft drugged in the beginning. New leadership came in and are reviving it in a massive way, which is really cool to see. So we have a couple of those projects that we're looking at, but on the other side of things, we're also looking at art. So we've been deep into the art blocks factory of the world. There's still a lot of potential happening there. There are some beautiful things that are super cheap still. So we are going to have a mix of products that are a little bit more on the fun side and playful side, and then also like more high-end designed home goods that we will use more fine art projects to create from, if that makes sense.
It does. Love the shout out for art blocks. I'm like a low key art blocks stalker, super fan. Physical product realm, like what do you anticipate doing the best? Have you like, run any metrics or anything, or, do you think, for example, like, I don't know, mugs are going to be like what people gravitate towards the most, or like, what's like going to be on the initial rollout?
Well, that's another great question. I think that it depends a little bit who you are as a brand. And I think StudioTBD, what we are as a brand, is that we want to be sort of in the intersection between, high-end fine art and design, together with the more playful sort of PFP side of things, like the FlyFrogs, for example. So I think walking into our store when it's open, it's going to feel like you are in a beefed up and more beautiful version of the MoMA Design Store, where there's going to be some items that are a little bit more accessible, like maybe iPhone cases, for example, and some items that are a little less accessible, that are more sort of geared towards the interior decorator, or someone who's really interested in high-end home goods design. So we want to sort of cover a broad spectra. What we've done so far is just we've done a bunch of mock-ups of things that looks cool, that we think could be an interesting idea. But when we sit down and do it for real, we will definitely make sure that we have the data on our side. What are people actually buying in these kinds of stores? We're always starting looking at that. But I think a healthy mix between accessible and fun, and a little bit more, highbrow, like wallpapers, for example, will also be something that we'll be looking at. So we want to cover like a broad spectrum from the home and accessory standpoint. So that's on the physical side. And when it comes to that, I think I see a lot of like small experiments that, a single holder is like, oh, look, I made a coffee brand. I know there's an Untamed Elephant coffee brand. I've seen some Bored Apes weed that's been done and stuff like that. The challenge with physical products is that you have to keep it consistent, and you have to make sure that the quality is up there. And so another reason that we went this route is because we had experience in creating physical products and quality control and supply lines and all that. It becomes a lot of work really fast. And if you don't have experience in it and you don't have domain expertise in it, can become pretty overwhelming. I mean, it was for me when I started out a few years ago, that's for sure.
I believe it. Curious, when you're like, sort of bringing in, call them brands, FlyFrogs, Untamed Elephants, or whatever, for, to showcase in your products, is your angle like mostly to sort of pitch to these like communities, like assuming your target customer is mostly going to be based out of this community, or are you trying to like go for projects that will have like more widespread appeal, like just, someone off the street just sort of thinks, the frog looks cool, they don't even necessarily need to know it's an NFT type of thing? Or like what's you consider your like target audience?
Yeah, so another great question. The purpose of the DAO is to bring NFT art and culture to the people in the outside world. So we are looking at projects that will have an intrinsic aesthetic value to people, even if they know there's not an NFT. So that's important to us. And then it has to be able to translate into a physical product. That's also important to us. And then from the fund side of things, it's also important that they have, a following, that there is some track records, and that they have huge potential. So, the easiest thing would probably be to buy a series of Bored Apes and create products for that, and have that community as the target audience. But they're already doing a fantastic job at that, and the price point is pretty high. So we are looking at projects that have big potential instead, because we also want to increase the value in the holdings as well, so we can free up more resources and do even more things. And one thing that I should add is that all profits from the DAO activities, in terms of value add, when the price increases on our holdings, if we can lend towards them or borrow money towards them, which that's all, that stuff is in the works. Like DeFi is coming to the NFT world, and is coming quickly, and all the profits from sales of products will all of it go back directly to the DAO to keep increasing the value and the reach of the DAO. So nobody will take any profits from that. We'll just pay our collaborators and the team, obviously. And we have that freedom because we have our cannabis brand as well. So there's a huge overlap between cannabis and NFTs. We all see it on Twitter. It's the same kind of people. It's like, it's the new movements. And there's also the two big growth markets that we're going to see over the next 8 to 10 years, I think. So there's already overlaps. And what we also want to do is want to bring these two worlds together by hosting events and making sure that sort of our physical spaces also becomes community hubs where we can educate people about NFTs. I'm based in New York, so And it's a good bet that our first physical space will be here in New York, and we have pretty good connections with the New York art world, who will invite the artists and maybe onboard more artists to NFTs and Web3, and also do education, parties, and products basically.
Dude, the scope of your project is impressive in itself. This is like no small task, but it also sounds like your team knows exactly what they're doing and have like a ton of experience to draw from to like roll this out properly. Not to mention like a actual like legit understanding of like Web3 and how this sort of takes shape moving forward. If there's anyone in the audience that has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and I'm happy to pass the mic your way. Lundy, what did we not cover, or is there anything we need to cover that we didn't yet? Or if we basically got across everything, let people know like what the important dates are or where to find you and like sort of all those things.
So first of all, follow us on here on Twitter. We haven't opened a Discord yet. Our goal is to under promise and over deliver. So we will move pretty slowly. But follow us on Twitter, StudioTBD NYC, and all the information will come there. The mint opens first or second week of February. It will be a 1155 ERC token, which is not unique. So every token will look the same, but it will function as a mint pass for the unique ERC 7221 product that's coming later. And another thing to know is also that you should check out artcolumn.io, which is the embryo for the entertainment empire that we will build in lockstep with this as well, because NFTs and entertainment is definitely where things are going. That's going to be super fun, and our own NFT project will be an entertainment project as well. I think aside from that, I think the one thing I could really recommend is to take 20 minutes and read through our white paper, Launchpad 2.0, which you can find on our website, studio-tbd.io. It's like I said, it doesn't describe what we are doing, but it describes where the world of NFTs and DAOs will go in terms of startups. And Molly and Josh has been, a part of creating that white paper as well. So they had a lot of great comments that we added into the papers. They got a little preview of it. So yeah, I think that's basically it. And our cannabis infused products, we're only hinting at them at the website for now, but there will be more news about them coming as well. If you are in New York or Los Angeles, maybe you can find your time to reach out to us on DMs, and we can see if there's a possibility for you to sample them as well. So that might be interesting to know if you're legal age and all that good stuff. I think that's it. I have a few notes in front of me. I think we've gone through all of it. One thing is that is not talked about really in this world is everybody talks about composability on blockchain and like, you can build things on Ethereum. And if someone builds something on Ethereum, you can build something on top of what they built. And if someone wants to build something on top of that, they can do that. So that part of composability is like widely discussed and really, really looked at. But on the business end, there's also composability, specifically with NFTs and the commercial rights, and nobody's really talking about that. But the business composability of blockchain, where you can build businesses on top of IPs by just investing a little bit in them, that's something that's going to explode, and that's something that is not talked about a lot.
I agree with you 100%, man. You've actually like given me something to sort of chew on for a little bit here as I sort of mull over some of your comments. Genuinely appreciate you hopping on and talking frogs and Studio TBD DAO with us. And as a Web3 like nut enthusiast myself, I truly appreciate the thought that you put into what you're doing here, and of course your love for the frogs. So, dude, this was like a experiment. This is the first Pondcast, so it's an honor to have you on. And if anyone missed it, we should have a recording to be able to point them to, and I'll let you know when we drop it.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah, it's been an honor to be on it. The first podcast that goes on my resume.
That's right. Yo, thanks, listeners. Any questions? DM one of us, and we'll help you figure it out. But thanks everyone for turning out, and look forward to more of these hosted by myself and other Pond members. So thanks, y'all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Hold on, there must be some mistake. Don't you know me? I'm Kermit the Frog.